Christchurch shooting, mosque terrorist sentenced to life without parole, an unprecedented sentence in New Zealand. May this be the last we hear of him. He sought many things from his act of terror, but one was notoriety. That is why you will never hear me mention his name, she said of the gunman. He is a terrorist. He is a criminal. He is an extremist. But he will, when I speak, be nameless. And to others, I implore you, speak the names of those who were lost rather than the name of the man who took them. He may have sought notoriety, but we, in New Zealand, will give nothing, not even his name. Jacinda Ardern, Prime Minister of New Zealand. Been a nuts week in the city, man. The law courts, police station and all the shopping/food places are literally next to each other in the city. Went out for food there and saw the barriers, 2 snipers on the rooftop and insane amount of police roaming around. Glad that dickhead is getting life though. 2 of the kids shot went to my old HS and one of them my little sister coached and played football with. Nicest kid I've met. Another was my mate's dad. I applaud all the victims who forgive him because that takes insane amounts of strength, but I know many more who are happy this POS will never get out. Edit, shout out to the one reply below. Glad to know there's still losers out there hiding behind throwaway accounts since they were bullied at preschool. Edit 2, saw another article with victim statement from my mate whose dad was killed. Called the shooter a big, fat loser and you will not be remembered, you are nobody. He's a fucking legend. So initially this monster of a human being pled not guilty and we were gearing up for an awful trial. Thankfully that was avoided when he changed the plea to guilty. The victims and their families were permitted to speak at this sentencing, and that was a media circus on its own, but this was sorted so much faster than we had been dreading. Good to see you on World News, Keza. You should start your own media company at this rate. I know this is possibly a very dumb question, but does a sentence of life without parole mean that he is in prison for the rest of his life, variable amount of years, with no chance of parole, or does a life sentence have a static number attached to it, e.g. 25 years? Thanks anyone who responds, smiley. There is a guy from where I live who survived the attack but saw his friend die protecting him, how it affected him and the nightmares which will not go away. It's amazing that life without parole, a fitting sentence, is unprecedented in NZ. I think this speaks very well to the way they handle criminals and crime overall. Life without parole is an exceedingly common sentence in many places, including the US. Dude isn't even 30 and lives in a cement box now. Well deserved. Couldn't have been anything else really. If you don't sentence him to the maximum possible, then surely there is no point in having it as an option. It would set a very high bar for its use. He deserved no less than this. May we never hear from him again. What a cunt. Thank fuck he wasn't given an opportunity to even believe he may get out with parole, which is common in NZ/AUS. Anything less would have been an injustice. What he did to all of those innocent people really cannot be forgiven. I'm ashamed that this guy is from my country and targeted our cousins across the ditch. I'm a Kiwi, and this article was the first time I learned the name of this swipe. It slightly pisses me off that I ever found out. It's silly and shallow, but I'll always remember this as the massacre that got Watch P Pleedy banned. In 50 years I wonder if he's going to think it was worth it to throw his own life away for whatever point he was trying to make. You know, looking at the pictures of this guy in the media now as against when he was arrested, he's completely lost his bravado. He never visualized or understood what the rest of his life was going to look like, and now that he's had a taste of it he looks completely broken. People shouldn't remember this guy, but as we are on Reddit, it's worth reminding everyone that it was online communities which had a part in influencing the worldview of this guy, and if you are reading this and regularly engage in hate discussion online, then you are feeding into tragedies like this. Grow up. People saying he should have gotten the death penalty are naive. I'm not arguing the pros and cons of capital punishment, but of law itself. 1. There is a little thing called no penalty without a law, https://en. Wikipedia. org/wiki/nulla_pona_sign_leg, which is the most important legal principle in criminal justice in any country. The death sentence doesn't exist in NZ, and the court cannot willy-nilly bend the law and decide on the spot to invent a new law and sentence the perpetrator to die. That's a hallmark of dictatorships. Look up perversion of justice during Nazi Germany, or when Saddam Hussein came to power and had members of parliament killed on the spot for not supporting him. If you support the death penalty, that's totally fine. You could say NZ should adopt the death penalty after this, but please do not claim the NZ courts are weak for not using a non-existing punishment. That just makes you look stupid. 2. If you are American, you should know this: there are 30 or so modern, Western countries in the world, with freedom of speech, economic prosperity, and common ideological principles. Countries like the US, Canada, AUS and NZ, Western Europe, Japan, Singapore, etc. All of them had the death penalty at some point. All of them got rid of it, mostly during the 50s to 70s, except for the US, Singapore, and Japan. They got rid of it after intense debates by scholars, politicians, the general public. So please be aware that when you defend the death penalty, you are egging from a point of an outlier to the rest of the world. I live about 750 m from where the first mosque was attacked. This event honestly fucked me up, and I'm not even an immigrant, I'm a Pakeha. Whenever I hear cars backfiring, or heavy machinery making loud bangs for roadworks on Riccarton Road, I automatically assume there's another shooting happening. Whenever I enter a crowded area or a lecture theater at uni, I start asking what I'd do if a shooter turned up. I can't even imagine how the people who were tragically targeted on March 15 last year feel. I just hope they know that the actions of this piece of shit is not the norm in New Zealand. We love you all, no matter your creed or color. Fuck this man for instilling fear into our city and country. We will never forget the people who died in this tragic event. Kia kaha, terrible act committed by a terrible human. I have no words. My heart aches for those parents who lost their children. I regret that I chose to watch the footage, even if it was to educate myself rather than go in for shock. But I am extremely angered by the fact that, when I watched it, the first person he killed was a man at the entrance who walked up and warmly said, "Good morning, brother." You know, so many times I've seen people say about Muslims is that when there's a terrorist attack by someone claiming to be Muslim, that the community doesn't do more to stop these attacks. And yet, as Australians, what are we doing to take ownership of this? What is our government doing to root out racism and extremism in our society? This monster is ours. With every passing day I feel like we Norwegians and you New Zealanders have more in common. I wish this didn't have to be one of those things, but I'm proud you took the same approach to consequence that we did. Like most people on the internet, I have seen some shit, but this video, when it leaked, broke me the fuck down. I was straight up crying. Life in prison shows that NZ is a better country than I am a person, because that would not have been my choice. So much alofa goes to the people of NZ. Majority of my family live over there, and when that incident occurred we could just feel their pain. As an Australian, when you see your neighbor go through some shit, it hits you deep as well. We could do better for the Kiwis that work and live over here, but we never forget them. Glad that POS is going away. We stand by the survivors and their loved ones.